Welcome to Module 8, Solution Architect Series, Model Security for Power Platform Solutions. This module is part of the Solution Architect Design Microsoft Power Platform Solutions. This module is part of the Solution Architect Design Microsoft Power Platform Solutions learning path. Let's get started. Solution Architect Series, Model Security for Power Platform Solutions.
When it comes to security modeling, the solution architect's role includes leading the efforts to build a comprehensive security model that addresses everything from authentication to data field level access. Rarely will you start with a blank slate. More commonly, you will be securing the new components for a project into an existing organization security infrastructure. Working closely with the organization's security teams is essential. You need to be able to communicate the options for security architecture at a high level and help guide the team members through the architecture design choices. It is important that you are an advocate for simplicity, keeping the security from being overcomplicated while at the same time ensuring necessary protections. As you work your way through discovery for modeling security, you have several considerations to be aware of. What are they using now? How do users sign into systems currently? Is Azure Active Directory in use? Do they use single sign-on, multi-factor authentication? How big of an influence is organization structure on the security decisions? Do people ever cross those organization boundaries, and how should that data be addressed? Are the stated security concerns just that, concerns, or are they something bigger, something regulatory, maybe geographic restrictions? The Power Platform uses a multi-layer approach to security. In organizations that are new to Power Platform, you will have to help establish a secure foundation for them to build on. In this module, you will learn how to approach security modeling on your projects. Make sure you do the exercise at the end on security modeling where you can practice what you have learned on a real-world scenario.
Introduction. Microsoft Power Platform has many different security features in environments, data, and application deployment. Security is a fundamental component in a Microsoft Power Platform solution design. Often, security requirements are ignored until a later time during a project. By including security modeling in the solution's design, you can avoid the need for significant changes later in a project. Important: security must be considered up front rather than as an afterthought before deployment. The correct security strategy balances legitimate security requirements with the need for system access and cross-business collaboration. When implementing Microsoft Power Platform solutions, the solution architect needs to balance two concerns: user access and system security. Data and system security are important. Data drives the business, data that you don't want to be obtained by a competitor. With regulations surrounding personal data, organizations can be liable for data breaches that include personal data. Other important considerations are system usability and user adoption. If the security model is too lax, users can view and change data that they should not be able to access, creating a perception that data in the system is unreliable. If the security model is too stringent and you lock everything so that users can only see a small subset of the data in the system, or they can only perform limited operations, you will diminish the value of the solution. Consequently, users will revert to their previous data silos and user adoption, which are the most important aspects of measure of success, and the solution will ultimately suffer. As a functional consultant or developer, you might not have been exposed to the security features in Microsoft Power Platform. However, as a solution architect, you will need to understand each security feature and when to apply it in different scenarios. This module provides an in-depth review of the security aspects of Microsoft Power Platform solutions, and it contains important information that is not found in modules for other roles. Security architecture process. To define security for a solution, solution architects need to break down the requirements and clarify what the solution needs to look like. The solution architect will need to understand the organization's environment and their requirements around the following aspects: authentication, network security, authorization. Discovery. Discovery is about learning the organization's environment, procedures, and policies. Solution architects need to discover what an organization currently uses for authentication by asking the following questions. Do they have single sign-on, or SSO? Are they using products from other sources or only Microsoft Entra ID? Do they use multi-factor authentication? Do they use conditional access? A single Microsoft Power Platform project is unlikely to change the organization's authentication approach. Therefore, the solution architect will need to map security policies and requirements to the design, create an initial authentication blueprint, review the design with the organization's security representatives. Solution architects need to understand how authorization will be applied to the solution and will need to extract security-related requirements, clarify security requirements for simplification, create an initial authorization blueprint, review with business analysts and security teams. To better understand how the organization manages security, solution architects should ask the following questions. How is security managed? What security policies must be followed? What is the approval process for security architecture? How are application-level entitlements managed? Which team will edit Microsoft Power Platform security? How are users assigned to applications? When learning about the user environment, the solution architect also needs to discover how the organization structure influences security, whether people work in teams that cross organization boundaries, if a data classification system is in place, the data retention policies and privacy policies, the data access regulations that apply. Solution architects' role in security modeling. Solution architects lead the efforts in building a comprehensive security model that covers authentication to data column level access. The solution architect's role in relation to security consists of leading the efforts in building a comprehensive security model, communicating options for security architecture at a high level and helping guide team members through the architecture design choices, advocating for simplicity, keeping the security from being overcomplicated while simultaneously ensuring necessary protections. A solution architect also needs to consider if security, regulatory, or compliance requirements will impact the solution design. Security requirements. The security model will be different for each solution, but you should consider the following guidelines when modeling security. Restrict. Users should only be able to edit data that is relevant to their role. However, it makes sense to be less restrictive about what data users can read because it helps users see their data in context. A solution architect should remove the ability to delete data unless necessary. Simplify. Microsoft Power Platform has many security features. A solution architect should consider the impact of the security design on how complex the management of the system will be and how difficult it will be to change. Use. Often, security requirements that will be provided derive from apprehension or misconception about Microsoft Power Platform capabilities. A solution architect should ensure that the security design is based in legitimate business requirements. This approach might require the solution architect to understand where security requirements have originated and to discuss alternative approaches. Trying to lock a Microsoft Power Platform solution to prevent users from performing actions can be difficult, if not expensive, if the capability to do so is not provided by the platform. The solution architect should use the security capabilities of the platform when designing security for their solution. Layer. Microsoft Power Platform has security features on apps, data, and processes. Ideally, security should be implemented at the platform layer for easier implementation management. Review. The usage of the solution when implemented will not be as originally imagined, and the patterns of usage will evolve over time. Occasionally, the initial security design decisions are no longer valid and will need to be adjusted. Next unit, environment security. Environment security. Environments are containers that administrators can use to manage apps, flows, connections, and other assets, along with permissions to allow organization users controlled access to the environment and its resources. Apps in Microsoft Power Apps and Microsoft Power Automate flows do not provide users with access to data assets that they don't already have access to. Users should only have access to data that they require access to. Access to environments is multi-layered. Environments are contained within a Microsoft Entra ID tenant. Access to the environment is authenticated by Microsoft Entra ID. Users must have a user account in Microsoft Entra ID to access any environment, and they must have a license to use Microsoft Power Platform. To access an individual environment, the user will need a Microsoft 365 role if a Microsoft Dataverse database is not available, and they'll need a Dataverse security role if a Dataverse database is available. Users also need to be given permission on resources in an environment such as apps, flows, and connectors. An administrator can also control access to environments from other Microsoft Entra ID tenants in business-to-business B2B scenarios. Microsoft Entra ID. Microsoft Power Platform uses Microsoft Entra ID to authenticate users. Microsoft Entra ID has several features that Microsoft Power Platform can use. Identity and access management. Manage access to apps from Power Apps. Authentication. Verify credentials when a user signs into an app that has several users in a flow. Single sign-on, SSO. Access apps without having to sign in separately. Multi-factor authentication. Prompts a user during sign-in for other forms of identification. Business-to-business, B2B. Manage your guest users and external partners while maintaining control over your own corporate data. Guest access is supported for Microsoft Power Platform. Conditional access. Manage access to your apps by using signals to make decisions on allowing access. Device management. Manage how your devices access your corporate data. Enterprise users. Manage license assignment. Hybrid identity. Microsoft Entra ID Connect provides a single user identity for authentication and authorization regardless of location, cloud or on-premise. Identity governance. Manage your organization's identity through employee, business partner, vendor, service, and app access controls. Identity protection. Detect potential vulnerabilities that affect your organization's identities. Reports and monitoring. Insights into the security and usage patterns in your environment. Microsoft Power Platform Admin Center provides more detailed insights than are provided by Microsoft Entra ID. Other features of Microsoft Entra ID that are not currently supported with Microsoft Power Platform: business to consumer, B2C, control how customers sign in by using their preferred social, enterprise, or local account identities. Managed identities, an identity in Microsoft Entra ID that can authenticate any Microsoft Entra ID supported authentication service. Currently, this feature is not supported in Microsoft Power Platform, and service principals must be used instead. Privileged Identity Management, PIM, provides elevated administrator access in a just-in-time JIT manner. An organization is likely to have chosen how it implements Microsoft Entra ID and Microsoft Power Platform solution, and it is unlikely to change this fundamentally. However, Microsoft Power Platform might provide access to users who have never had IT app access previously, such as mobile frontline workers, business partners, and external contractors who don't have identities in Microsoft Entra ID. Therefore, you might need to consider conditional access, B2B, and guest user access. Conditional access requires a Microsoft Entra ID premium license. Conditional access policies can grant or block access to apps and data based on the following factors: user, device, location. Microsoft Azure Active Directory B2B, Microsoft Entra ID B2B, collaboration is a feature that lets you invite guest users to collaborate with your organization. You can assign licenses to guest users to run apps that are built with Microsoft Power Platform. Currently, guests can't create or edit Power Apps. For more information, see Share a Canvas app with guest users and About Power Apps per Apps Plan licenses. Cross-tenant isolation. In B2B collaboration scenarios, you can more securely share the apps and data in your tenant with a tenant from another source. In the default configuration, each tenant can access the other tenant's resources. Microsoft Entra ID has a feature called Tenant Restrictions. With tenant restrictions, organizations can specify the list of tenants that their users are permitted to access. Microsoft Entra ID then only grants access to these permitted tenants. Cross-tenant isolation lets you restrict the other tenants that your users can connect to. Cross-tenant isolation blocks inbound or outbound connections for Canvas apps and flows. Restricting outbound connections means that a user in your tenant is blocked from connecting to a partner or external tenant. Restricting outbound cross-tenant connections can be done by using tenant restrictions that apply to all Microsoft Entra ID cloud apps that would block outbound connections for Power Apps and Power Automate flows. Restricting inbound connections means that a user in a partner or external tenant is blocked from creating a connection to your tenant. Important. Restricting inbound cross-tenant connections requires a support ticket. Then, this restriction will only apply to Power Apps and Power Automate flows. Help secure environments with security groups. By default, a user with a Power Apps license can potentially access all environments in a tenant, and you will be able to see all licensed users in the user table in an environment. Microsoft Entra ID security groups can be used to limit access to environments. This feature has the added advantage of keeping the user table streamlined to only the users of the environment. A security group can be associated with an environment when the environment is created, or it can be linked to the environment. In the following screenshot, a security group for the developers has been associated with the development environment. The previous screenshot shows that the following behavior is observed. When users are added to the security group, they are added to Dataverse as users. When users are removed from the security group, they are disabled in Dataverse. When a security group is associated with an existing environment that contains users, the users in the environment that are not members of the security group will be disabled. When no security group is associated with an environment, all users with a Power Apps license will be created as users and enabled in the environment. Note: distribution groups and Microsoft Office 365 groups can't be associated with environments. Roles and admin accounts. Managing environments and performing some administration activities requires one or more of these administration roles. Global admin. A user with this role has full administration access to all services in the tenant. Global admins have access to all Microsoft Power Platform environments and will be added to all Dataverse environments with the System Administrator security role. Microsoft Power Platform admin. A user with Microsoft Power Platform admin role can create environments, manage all environments, even if users don't belong to the security group for the environment, manage Power Apps, manage Power Automate, and manage data loss prevention policies. A Microsoft Power Platform admin can also manage support tickets and monitor service health. Delegated admin. Delegated administration is used by Microsoft Cloud Solution Provider Program (CSP) partners to manage their customers through the Microsoft Partner Portal. A delegated admin has full administration to all services in the customer's tenant. Note: the Microsoft Dynamics 365 admin role is deprecated. A user with the Dynamics 365 admin role can create environments and manage environments, but only if the user belongs to the security group for that environment. A user with the Dynamics 365 admin role will have the System Administrator security role in those environments. These roles are not the same as security roles in an environment. Non-administrative users can be assigned a role for an environment. The roles that are used differ depending on whether the environment contains a Dataverse database or not. Environment security and access control. Access is controlled at 3 levels: environment roles, resource permissions for apps, flows, custom connectors, and so on, Dataverse security roles, if a Dataverse database has been provisioned. After a Dataverse database has been created, the Dataverse security roles take over for controlling security. The environment admin role is only used when a Dataverse database is not present. The environment admin for a specific environment can allow the user with the role to add and remove users with the environment maker role. The environment maker role allows a user to create apps in that environment. When a Dataverse database is added to the environment, a user with the environment admin role is given the system admin security role. in the Dataverse database, and a user with the environment maker role is given the basic user security role. Next unit, data loss prevention. Data loss prevention. Data loss prevention, also known as DLP policies, act as guardrails to help prevent users from unintentionally exposing organizational data and to protect information security in the tenant. DLP policies enforce rules that establish which connectors will be enabled for each environment and which connectors can be used together. DLPs prevent unauthorized data access and leakage from Microsoft Power Platform. As a solution architect, you need to be concerned with DLPs because they ensure proper data flow in an organization by following organization policies, can prevent a developed solution from working properly if they are not included in your plans, can break your solution after you deploy if they are added later. Key facts. Key facts about data loss prevention policies are: DLPs enforce rules for which connectors can be used together. Connectors are classified into groups. A connector in one group can only be used with other connectors from that same group in an app or a flow. Tenant admins can define policies that apply to all environments. By default, no DLP policies are implemented in the tenant. Connectors are classified as either business data only, no business data allowed, or blocked. A connector in the business data only group can only be used with other connectors from that group in the same app or flow. The names business and non-business don't have special meaning, they are simply labels. The group of the connectors is of significance, not the name of the group that they're placed in. Connectors that are blocked can't be used. Note, Dataverse connectors can't be blocked. DLPs and environments. DLP policies can be scoped at the tenant level and at the environment level. You can apply multiple DLP policies to an environment. At design and runtime, all policies that are applicable to the environment in which the app or flow resides are evaluated together to decide whether the resource is in compliance or violation of the DLP policy. If multiple policies are configured for one environment, the most restrictive policy applies to the combination of connectors. Note, environment DLP policies can't override tenant-wide DLP policies. The solution architect should aim to define the minimum number of policies and, if possible, avoid having multiple policies applied to an environment. The following approach is recommended when you're creating policies. Create a policy that spans all environments, that block all unsupported non-Microsoft connectors and classifies all Microsoft connectors as business data. Create a policy for the default environment and other training environments that further restricts which Microsoft connectors are classified as business data. Create other policies or exclude those environments from the previous policies that permit certain connectors to use for specific environments. Deploy policies. Solution architects should consider the following factors regarding data loss prevention policies. It's best to establish a default policy early and then grant exceptions later. New and updated restrictions can disable existing apps and flows. Changes can take a few minutes to take effect. Policies can't be applied at the user level, only at the tenant or environment level. Microsoft PowerShell and admin connectors can manage policies. Users of resources and environments can view policies that apply. When deploying to an existing tenant, solution architects need to liaise with other groups in IT to confirm that DLP policies are configured to support your deliverable. Know the required lead time for getting changes approved and implemented. Know what you can do and what you require other groups to do. Use Microsoft Entra ID security groups for controlling access to environments and resources. Next unit, access to Dataverse. Access to Dataverse. Data should always be considered a valuable asset. Therefore, it is important in security design to create a security model that ensures proper usage and access to that valuable asset. Microsoft Dataverse stores data for Microsoft Power Platform and provides services for apps. Microsoft Power Platform has layered security to control access to a Dataverse environment, but after a user has obtained access to the environment, the solution architect needs to control access within the database. One key feature of Dataverse One key feature of Dataverse is its rich security model that can adapt to many business usage scenarios. Authorization. Authorization is the function of specifying access rights or privileges to resources. Security design will implement authorization to access data and features, deciding who can gain access and to what data and services is an essential part of any solution's design. Inadequate security design can lead to poor system design, and these factors can have far-reaching impact and can be costly to fix. Manageability. Difficulty in managing individual access. Performance. For example, Principal Access Object, POA. Table growth when sharing. Usability. Cumbersome procedures to grant access. Visibility. Impossible to tell by looking at the record who has access to it. Every solution has unique requirements, but common capabilities and patterns can be identified and reused. Common patterns. Common usage patterns within many business apps include active involvement, regular, significant involvement directly with the customer data, informed with existing knowledge of the customer or data and current related activity and personal actions based on a direct relationship with the people who are involved. Secondary involvement. Informed involvement, maintaining active knowledge of activity but not directly participating or acting on the data or with the customer, such as providing cover for absence of actively involved staff. Supporting others who have a personal relationship with the customer, such as providing advice or support to people who are actively involved or providing specialist knowledge to a specific piece of data or customer. Transactional interaction. Specific activity-oriented involvement, for example, receiving and acting on a request to update a customer's address. No personal or ongoing engagement, such as in contact center. Management oversight. Managerial or governance responsibility across a business or geographical area, viewing and directing involvement of others rather than specific involvement. Reporting. Data is organized to preserve anonymity, rather than providing direct access to customer deals. Compliance. Oversight, read-only access to all records for a business area. When designing security, the solution architect needs to understand how users work. In other words, they need to determine if the users work by themselves, work part of a static team, or work in a dynamic team that changes based on certain rules. These factors will affect the security design. After determining these factors, the solution architect needs to understand how other staff provide support. For example, the solution architect should inquire whether the users have assigned support staff and if the support staff are shared between other users. Additionally, the solution architect should ask about what would happen if support staff are unavailable, what happens overnight and during weekends, and how the oversight is handled. Design principles. When designing security, solution architects need to follow certain principles. Assigned responsibility doesn't always need restricted access. Treat exceptions as exceptions. Favor frequent access patterns. You can't revoke access for one record where you granted access to a broader set of data that contains it. Use business units for manageability and containment, not for matching organizational structure. Use the simplest design that performs well and meets requirements. Note: occasionally, the organizational structure aligns with the required security structure. However, this occurrence is rare. When you're designing security, don't use only the organizational structure as the default. Security features. Dataverse provides many security features for accessing data: table ownership, users, teams, business units, security roles, sharing, Microsoft Entra ID security groups, column-level security, hierarchical security, auditing. Note: column-level security is also referred to as field security. Solution architects need to understand each of these features and how they combine to create the security model for their solution. This unit doesn't go into detail about each of these security features, but it explains how they can be used together to create a security model for your solution. Table ownership. Tables in Dataverse can either be user or team owned or organization owned. User or team owned tables have an owner field, and each row in the table can be assigned an owner. The owner of a row is used with the other security features to determine who has access to the row. That is, access to rows is granular and can be horizontally partitioned. Alternatively, access to individual rows on organization-owned tables can't be restricted, and users will have access to all records or none. Note: you can't change the ownership type after a table has been created. When in doubt, specify the user team ownership type when you are creating tables. Teams. Teams is a collection of users that allows user access to data. Teams is a powerful way of granting permissions to users in a broad way without micromanaging access at the individual user level. Users can be members of multiple teams. 3 types of teams are: owner. These teams can own rows, which give any team members direct access to that row. Access. A method for users to easily share a row with another from within a form. Microsoft Entra ID Group. Similar to owner teams, but membership of the team is controlled in Microsoft Entra ID. Security roles. Security roles are fundamental to data security in Dataverse. You don't grant discrete privileges to users, you create security roles. Dataverse use role-based security to group together a collection of privileges. Security roles can be assigned to users and to teams. Teams and users can have security roles that provide aggregate privileges. Important: all privilege grants are cumulative, with the greatest amount of access prevailing. If you gave broad organization-level read access to all contact records, you can't go back and hide a single record. Business units. Business units contain users and teams and act as a security boundary. Business units are the primary method for controlling access to subsets of data within a table. That is, horizontal partitioning of data. With business units, you can segment users and their data. Every Dataverse database has a single root business unit. You can create child business units to represent groups of users in a strict hierarchy. Note: business units have a default team that contains all users in that business unit. You can't manually add or remove users from default teams, so that they can become blockers for some scenarios as the solution evolves. Important: it is the combination of security roles and business units that is the foundation of the security model for Dataverse. Business units provide an efficient way of managing numerous users and record access. Business units are not visible to the users in the applications, only to administrators. You should not only mirror an organization's org chart, but you should also design the business unit hierarchy to meet the security requirements. This approach can sometimes mean creating business units to achieve a security requirement, such as creating a business unit to parent the sales and marketing business units to allow some users to access those units while preventing access to the operations business unit. Share rows. Individual rows can be shared with users and teams. This feature permits users to access records that are restricted by the security model that is generated by business units. Sharing allows rows to be accessed outside of the strict business unit hierarchy. Security roles and teams. Security roles can be associated with teams. Users can then be associated with the team. Therefore, all users who are associated with the team will benefit from the role. Users will have access to the rows owned by the team and, depending on other security features, might have access to rows that are owned by other users in the team. Options on the security role that control how the security role operates with a team are: default, team privileges only; direct user, basic, access level and team privileges. Using the direct user option treats privileges as if they were directly assigned to the user. By using this option, you can avoid having to assign security roles to users and instead use teams and security roles that are assigned to teams. Note: owner teams belong to business units. A user can only belong to one business unit at a time, but a user can be added to a team in another business unit. This feature allows users to access data in a business unit that is not in their hierarchy. Column level security. The privileges that are provided by security roles operate at the row level. If a user has update privileges on a row, they can update all columns on that row. Occasionally, row-level control of access is not adequate, such as columns that contain personal identifiable information. Dataverse has a column-level security feature to allow more granular control of security at the column level, also known as field-level security. Column-level security operates separately to security roles. Column security profiles define the read-write privileges on the columns, and these profiles are assigned to the users and teams. Note: if a user doesn't have the privileges to read a secured column, they can still see the column on the form, but will not be able to see its contents, in other words, the value of the data. When they use code to access a secured field, the value will be null if the user does not have read privileges. Hierarchical security. One issue with the use of business units is their strict hierarchy. Access to data can only follow the hierarchy of the business units. In the diagram of business units, a user in sales can be given access to North, Central, and South business units. Conversely, a user in operations business unit can't access data that belongs to sales without being given access to all data in the organization. In hierarchical security, the user in the above position can read and write all data for their subordinates. Additionally, they can read data for the users who are lower in the hierarchy. Hierarchical security is an alternative security model that is designed for scenarios where a user who requires management oversight is not within the same part of the business unit hierarchy. Hierarchical security is useful in situations when managers are in different countries, regions, or departments from their direct reports. Hierarchical security has two options. Manager hierarchy. This option uses the user hierarchy on the system user table. The restriction is that a manager in the same business unit or in the direct chain of business units above can't read and write data from users in different departments. Positional hierarchy. This option uses the position table. This option is more flexible and ignores the business unit structure. Positional hierarchy also allows for more than one person in a position. Only one of the hierarchical types can be used at the same time. Audit. Audit captures all data changes. Auditing can help monitor who has made what changes, and it can also help analyze how users are actually using the system. The audit functionality within Dataverse doesn't capture data reads or actions, such as exporting to Microsoft Excel. Other available auditing is called activity logging, which is located in Microsoft 365 Security and Compliance Center, also now called Microsoft Purview. Activity logging includes data reads and other operations. Activity logging must be enabled and helps meet compliance objectives. Manage security across multiple environments. Security roles and column security profiles can be packaged into solutions and transported to other environments. Access team templates are part of the table metadata and are included with the table when they are added to the solution. Other security features, such as business units and teams, can't be packaged in solutions, and the solution architect will need to plan for their population on environments. Strategies for defining security roles. 3 basic strategies for building security roles are position, specific, baseline and position, baseline and capability. The position-specific strategy is the creation of a single security role that contains all privileges that the job role requires. The out-of-the-box roles are position-specific and are named after job roles, for example, salesperson. You can follow this model of a role for specific job roles, but you might end up with many security roles that are similar and that you must maintain. For example, adding a new custom table will mean changing many, if not all, roles. A more modern model is to use layered security model. In this model, you would copy an out-of-the-box role such as salesperson or basic user, and then change the access levels to the common or minimal levels that all users require. You might name this role baseline. You would then create new roles and set the access levels for the few privileges that each group of the users would need in addition to the base role. These minimal roles contain the other privileges that are required for the position or the required capability. In the following diagram, the baseline role is named All Staff, and all users will be assigned to this role. All users in Sales will also be assigned to the role named Sales, a position role, with some table users being assigned the Mobile role, a capability role that has the Go Mobile privilege, and a manager who is being assigned the Sales role and the Manager role. Though it might not be obvious, security roles are linked to business units. Roles that are created at the root business unit are inherited by all child business units. You can create a security role for a specific business unit if you want to limit that role to the users in that business unit. However, be aware that security roles in solutions are always added to the root business unit when the solution is imported. Microsoft Entra ID Group Teams. A Microsoft Entra ID Group Team is similar to an owner team in that it can own records and can have security roles assigned to the team. The difference is that team membership in Dataverse is dynamically derived from the membership of the associated Microsoft Entra ID Group. Microsoft Entra ID Group membership can be manually assigned or can be further derived from rule-based assignment based on the user's attributes in Microsoft Entra ID. Combining Microsoft Entra ID Group Teams with assigning security roles to teams with the direct user option can significantly simplify the management of adding new users. Security groups and Office 365 groups can be used for Microsoft Entra ID Group Teams. Next unit, Security in Apps. Security in apps. When setting up security, you can set up 4 different layers of security for an app. App level restricts access to the app. Form level for model-driven apps. With this security level, you can allow only specific security groups to access specific forms. This level is useful if you want to restrict how many people enter or view data by their job role. Row level. The Dataverse security model controls access to rows. Column level. Control access to individual columns in a table. Security should happen at the platform layer, not the app layer. Numerous ways are available for you to control reading and writing data in an app. You can set columns to read only on your model-driven form. You can use JavaScript to mask columns from the user experience, and you can hide columns and fields from forms and views. None of these approaches truly implement security. They do not secure data, and users can still get to the data in other ways, such as with Advanced Find or Edit in Excel Online. Additionally, all users are entitled to use the API and can use partner and community tools to access the data. For proper security, the security features of Dataverse should be employed. Elevated privileges and impersonation. You should avoid giving users high levels of privileges. Plug-in .NET assemblies, classic workflows and Power Automate cloud flows can run with elevated access to perform actions on behalf of the user. API code can impersonate another user if necessary. Automation. Solution architects should consider automating aspects of managing users and security. For instance, you can control many aspects for creating teams to sharing rows through the API. You could trigger plugins or Power Automate flows based on events that occur in the system to change a user's security. For example, you could elevate the backup account manager automatically or share their data so that the user can manage the account while the primary account manager is on vacation. Performance. Solutions with larger number of users and/or data must be aware of the impact of choices. For example, excessive sharing can create considerable overhead. Too many business units can cause slow access. Too many processes will run on events. Poor plugin design. Poor security design can lead to poor performance. Techniques that you can use to improve security performance include: look for ways to escalate security, such as sharing with a team instead of a user. Minimize the number of business units. Use access teams instead of owner teams. Test with real volumes and real security scenarios to validate the design. Use the analytics tools in Microsoft Power Platform Admin Center to view API calls and high-volume processes. The best way to improve performance is to keep the security design as simple as possible. Separate and optimize usage patterns. A solution architect should optimize for different usage patterns. Specifically, you need to use different security model features to provide necessary access, with different users having different ways to access the same record, as shown in the following diagram. Different business areas can be modified differently. Not all users work in the same way. The solution architect should reflect on the different working models of different parts of the business and then model each area differently to get an optimal solution, as shown in the following diagram. Model exceptions as exceptions. Solution architects should aim to model the common access patterns as efficiently as possible and use a more granular model where complex access is required. Sharing is a good example of exception processing. Sharing should be with teams whenever possible. Separate historical from active data. Infrequently accessed but high-volume historical data can impact current data access. The solution architect should consider partitioning data in the security model in separate tables and then providing a secondary mechanism for occasional access. Review the data model to help security. Some data model adjustments can make security modeling easier. The solution architect should determine if defining new data boundaries will simplify security modeling. For example, instead of having individual access defined to account records, you could move financial reporting information from the account records to a separate financials table, which will allow everyone to view the account table but will keep the financials table limited to managers only. Next unit, exercise security modeling. Exercise security modeling. In this exercise, you'll be creating a security model for Fabricam to track visitors. Review the information presented about Fabricam robotics and complete the tasks. This could be completed as a small group as well. You're building a solution for Fabricam to track visitors to a showroom and manufacturing site. Some of the visitors are potential purchasers, and some of those are there to see the magic of the robots working. This exercise should be completed after the data modeling exercise from this learning path.
In this exercise, you will be creating a security model for Fabricam. As a reminder, you are building a solution for them to track visitors to their showroom and manufacturing site. Some of these might turn into sales and are tracked as such. Sometimes it's just people fascinated by robots and having a look around. Now it's time to learn more about Fabricam robotics and their security needs. Then, how can we best address these needs? We have provided you with a simplified set of security requirements from Fabricam. You will be evaluating these as you answer our questions about how you would design a security model. The data model you've already drafted is tracking visitors and their visit information, such as a signed waiver and their photo. One of the most important questions to consider is, will that data model you've already drafted support the security needs of the customer? Think about whether or not you might have to make any course corrections on that drafted data model. You should make sure to keep it in mind as you work through the security model. We know that their IT admin team is more than a little concerned about the rapid pace of moving to the cloud. You could almost see their panicked, wide-eyed response to the manufacturing lead building her own Power App to solve a problem on the shop floor. When it comes to walking through the specific steps we've outlined, keep a few things in mind. You are both customer and architect in this story. Take notes as you read. Jot down questions you have, any concerns you may have, and think about more than what's on the page. You are the expert. Make sure the customer hasn't left out anything that must be addressed. Remember, as you work through the security model, that good security modeling is a balance between ensuring protection of resources while at the same time not imposing restrictions that render the solution unusable or overcomplicated. You can certainly complete these steps on your own, but if you have the opportunity to have a meaningful discussion of these requirements with another architect, you will learn even more from that shared perspective. In this exercise, you will be creating a security model for Fabricam. As a reminder, you are building a solution for them to track visitors to their showroom and manufacturing site. Some of these might turn into sales and are tracked as such. Sometimes it's just people fascinated by robots and having a look around. Now it's time to learn more about Fabricam Robotics and their security needs. Then, how can we best address these needs? We have provided you with a simplified set of security requirements from Fabricam. You will be evaluating these as you answer our questions about how you would design a security model. The data model you've already drafted is tracking visitors and their visit information, such as a signed waiver and their photo. One of the most important questions to consider is, will that data model you've already drafted support the security needs of the customer? Think about whether or not you might have to make any course corrections on that drafted data model. You should make sure to keep it in mind as you work through the security model. We know that their IT admin team is more than a little concerned about the rapid pace of moving to the cloud. You could almost see their panicked, wide-eyed response to the manufacturing lead building her own Power App to solve a problem on the shop floor. When it comes to walking through the specific steps we've outlined, keep a few things in mind. You are both customer and architect in this story. Take notes as you read, jot down questions you have, any concerns you may have, and think about more than what's on the page. You are the expert. Make sure the customer hasn't left out anything that must be addressed. Remember, as you work through the security model, that good security modeling is a balance between ensuring protection of resources while at the same time not imposing restrictions that render the solution unusable or overcomplicated. You can certainly complete these steps on your own, but if you have the opportunity to have a meaningful discussion of these requirements with another architect, you will learn even more from that shared perspective.
You'll be able to find a link to that module in the playlist for this learning path. See the description of this video for more information. If you're completing this exercise independently, take notes. Put yourself in the mindset of both customer and solution architect. Draw your security model, put pen to paper, actual pen to paper or virtual pen to paper, and evaluate options. Draw a diagram, make a list of considerations. Everyone thinks through the process differently. Use the tools that work for you. Consider bigger picture items. If you build the security model, do you have data model considerations to worry about? Will your ideas still work? If given the opportunity, share this assignment with colleagues who are also security architects and seek their feedback to your security model. Requirements. You're building a solution for Fabricam to track visitors to a showroom and manufacturing site. Some of the visitors are potential purchasers and some are there to see the magic of the robots working. Review the requirements here and address the concerns listed later in this document. Requirement 1. Fabricam has been rapidly moving to the cloud and already uses Office 365 for their email. They're adopting the use of Microsoft Teams at a rapid pace. Requirement 2. You've already architected the solution to include the following Power Apps. A model-driven app named Sales Central to be used by the sales staff and sales managers. A Canvas app to check in guests visiting the showroom to be used by the reception staff. A portal that visitors can use to request to visit. Requirement 3. Fabricam is going to use Power Apps per app licenses for reception staff and Dynamics 365 sales app licenses for the sales staff. Requirement 4. Fabricam's IT security team wants to make sure the new solution doesn't open up any security exposure from potential data leaks. You must ensure that your security setup prevents users from building their own cloud flows in Power Automate that sends data to outside services that aren't approved. You could almost see the panic on their faces when your sales team did the demo of how easy it was to build a Cloudflow using random third-party connectors. Requirement 5. The sales staff handles their own leads and opportunities. They're compensated by commission on close of sales and are competitive. The staff that works on small deals all work together and receive commission on all closed deals in their department. The large deals sales staff mostly works by themselves, except on large deals where there's a team of them assigned. Requirement 6. Reception staff must not have access to the sales data. Requirement 7. Sales managers need to have access to the deals of their team members. Requirement 8. Discounts can only be approved and applied by one of the sales managers. The app should ensure the sales staff can't approve their own discounts. In the data model, there's a discount field of type currency and a required lookup field in the approver. Requirement 9. Fabricam's organisation has the following division and departments: sales, small deals, large deals, wholesale; marketing, operations, manufacturing, showroom. Showroom has all the reception staff, shipping, and then customer service. Your tasks. Create a security model for the above requirements. You can sketch this on a whiteboard, build a small proof of concept, or evaluate and take notes with other tools that you like to work with. How do you calm the concerns of the security staff and rogue connector use? How do you handle ensuring only sales managers approve and apply discounts? How do you control access to each of the Power Apps? What do you need to do to accommodate the Power Apps per app licenses are used for the reception staff? What Dataverse security roles would you have the team create? What business units can you begin to define to support your solution? How will you handle so that portal users can only see their own visit request records to check the status and potentially cancel a visit? How would you ensure the small sales department can see all data for all sales staff, but the large deals sales staff can only see their own except when a team is put together to handle large deals? In the following video, we evaluate the requirements and key constraints for providing a solution for Fabricam.
In this video, we explore the possible answers and considerations for the questions we gave you about the security model for Fabricam Robotics. Let's get started. Our first question is, how do you calm the concerns of the security staff and prevent rogue connector use? We address this head-on by ensuring the team establishes appropriate data loss prevention policies. A global policy should be established covering all the environments and specific ones to manage any exceptions. To be successful here, you must understand what's already in place and make sure to establish a good foundation if they don't already have one, ideally helping to guide them to a place that encourages citizen developers while keeping appropriate policies in place. Our next question is, how do you handle ensuring that only sales managers can approve and apply discounts? Dataverse column-level security would let us lock this down for a subset of users. It's important with column-level security, though, to make sure that you don't overuse it because too many secured columns can impact performance. And we know that poor performance is likely to reduce user adoption. Next question, how could you control access to each of the Power Apps? We could do this by creating Azure Active Directory security groups for each group, or use the existing groups if they are already in place, and then share the apps with the appropriate groups. What do you need to do to accommodate that Power Apps per app licenses are used by the reception staff? We would simply allocate enough per app licenses to the environment to accommodate the number of reception staff. Don't assign a per user license to them and share the app with them. The team should also evaluate if Azure pay-as-you-go licensing would be beneficial. Our next question is, what Dataverse security roles would you have the team create? We would create 4 Dataverse security roles. First, a base role that includes the core permissions needed by all groups of users. Second, a receptionist role that does not have access to sales data. Third, a small group sales role with business unit read and write so that they can see and collaborate on opportunities in their group. And finally, a large group sales role with user-level read and write for opportunities so individuals can only see their own data. Our next question is, what business units can you begin to define to support your solution? We would add 2 child business units for small and large group sales. Remember, you never want to create too many business units, but they can be great security containers as part of your security model. Our next question is, how will you handle so portal users can only see their own visit records? Power Apps portal users gain access to data by adding table permissions to web roles. We would simply use a web role that gave context table permissions to visitor records. This would ensure they only are able to see their own visit records. The final question is, how would we ensure that the small sales department can see all the data for all sales staff, but the large deal sales staff can only see their own except when the team is put together to handle very large deals. We would handle this in the security role by ensuring that the small group role had the ability to see all data within the business unit, but the large group role would only be able to see and use their own records. We would then use teams to support giving access to the large sales staff when they were collaborating on very large deals. Hopefully this gives you some insights into considerations you should have when defining a security model on a project.
Other considerations. How strict should the data loss prevention policies be? Have you properly secured data? Did you avoid security by obscurity? Did you introduce any issues for users? Did you make decisions that will impact performance? How would you test your security decisions? Review your security model. There isn't a single right way to model this solution. We have offered thoughtful consideration for the specific topics listed of how you might approach solving this set of requirements. Compare the examples to what you designed and review the differences. Next, check your knowledge. Answer the following questions to see what you've learned. You need to automate the enabling access to a Dataverse environment for users who are new to the organization. What should you use? Access teams, owner teams, Microsoft Entra ID group teams, default teams. I'm going to go with Microsoft Entra ID group teams. You have a business unit structure with 3 child business units under the root. Unit A, Unit B, Unit C. You need to allow users in Unit A to access the data in Table X, which is owned by users in Unit C. What should you do? Share Table X rows in Unit C with Unit A. Create a team in Unit C and then add users in Unit A to the team. Create a team in Unit A and then add users in Unit C. Change access levels for Table C security role to organizational level. I think sharing would work, and we could say create a team in Unit C and then add users. I'm going to say this. Create a team in Unit C and then add users in Unit A. Okay, what security features should you use for the management oversight pattern? Column level security, business units, sharing, or hierarchical security? I'm going to say hierarchical security. Oh. Okay, and now we've got the answers. Let's go to summary. In this module, you learned about security modeling with Microsoft Power Platform, including different aspects of security architecture, securing environments, security features of Microsoft Dataverse, the impact of security on performance, modeling different usage scenarios. Security must be considered from the start of the project. The solution architect must ensure that security is designed into the data and app models. Changing security later in the process after the data model has been created and apps have been composed can be difficult. Security modeling is unique to each solution. One size does not fit all. Different industries and business models follow different approaches to granting access. The solution architect should look for common patterns that emerge from requirements. Often, these patterns emerge from how the relationships with the stakeholders of the system are managed. Primarily, solution architects should keep security as simple as possible, while still meeting the business needs to secure data and optimize the user experience. Next steps. Review security model for your Dynamics 365 Solutions module. Secure the app and data documentation. Security concepts in Microsoft Dataverse. I hope you found this video useful. Give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for listening.